Hannah, we are coming up on Mother's Day. It's going to be this Sunday. Can you believe it? It's already May.
No, already May. It's gonna be May.
Time is flying by. We had been talking about this for a few months earlier in the year that during this month we wanted to highlight mothers and their unique experiences in the world. You and I are constantly talking to mothers who have had really vast and different experiences. So I loved this conversation that we had with Kellyn Ender, who's a licensed counselor, and she also is the executive director of Building Hope, which is one of the charities that you and I have highlighted in this podcast.
Yeah, it was a great conversation, and Kellyn is just so real and vulnerable and honest. And I think, we've made it very clear on this podcast so far, Jane, that we are not moms. But we work with a lot of moms. And I think something that we've talked about a lot is just how culture and lack of conversations create such shame and disconnect in people. And I think one of the hottest areas for that is motherhood and moms, like social media, and everyone makes it look like the best thing ever and that your pregnancy is going to be great and easy, and don't have sex because you'll get knocked up, and things are just so beautiful. And I think Kellyn shines a light on what it's really like to deal with pregnancy and pregnancy loss and new motherhood. And so I just appreciate her realness on this conversation. I think it's so, so important.
I totally agree. And you are spot on. This is one of those areas that constantly in my practice with friends and family, you come up against expectations that moms had, expectations that are put on them, how difficult the work of motherhood is, and how maybe undereducated we are culturally and societally about how hard it is, what moms really need to thrive, what they need to do well. There's some pretty wild statistics out there, like
insane.
Like we know at least 1 in 5 women in the US experience some sort of perinatal mood disorder, which means it can be postpartum depression or anxiety, OCD. There's actually lots of ways that it shows up. And up to 70 report feeling at least just the baby blues, or crying spells or difficulty with their mood. So it's very real and it's out there. And like you said, appreciate Kellyn coming on and helping us understand it better.
Yeah, like 70% of new moms have the baby blues. So that tells me it's more normal than not. But the normal thought and archetype and cultural messages, you're in love and you're in this bubble and you're so open. And it's like, we just have such a fucked up view on what's real. And I think moms, they have these babies and I feel my heart goes out to them.
Yeah. I think whether you're a mom or thinking about becoming a mom or supporting or loving a mom, which should be all of us, people will get a lot out of this conversation and learn a lot from Kellyn.
Yes. Enjoy this episode with Kellyn Ender. It's such a good one, and happy Mother's Day. Welcome to Are We Happy Yet? I'm Hannah Buzzo, licensed therapist.
And I'm Jane Thatcher Hahn, licensed clinical social worker.
We're two longtime friends deep in the work of helping people untangle their lives.
And let's be honest, untangling our own along the way.
We started this podcast because even as mental health goes mainstream, more and more people are feeling anxious, disconnected, and burnt out than ever before.
So what gives? We're exploring how everything from therapy and psychedelics to culture, politics, creativity, and relationships shape our well-being.
Think of this as your weekly reality check, gut punch, and group hug all rolled into one.
We're here to ask the big questions, share what we're learning, and laugh a lot while we figure it out.
This is Are We Happy Yet? Let's get into it.
Welcome back to the Are We Happy Yet podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Jane Thatcher Hahn, here with Hannah Buzzo and a very special guest. When this episode comes out, it's going to be May. It's our Motherhood month, and we are going to celebrate all things motherhood in all of its forms and in all of its challenges and all of its losses and beauty and all of those things. So we're trying to represent lots of different perspectives here and talk to all sorts of different women. So our very special guest is Kellyn Ender. Kellyn, thanks so much for being here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So if you've been listening to our podcast, you heard Dylan Stein from a wonderful organization called Building Hope. He came on and talked with Hannah and I all about masculinity and mental health and his journey, and his boss is here. I think that's fair to say, right? You're essentially Dylan's boss. We're just moving up the ladder, but we're at the top. Kellyn is the executive director of Building Hope, and it's one of the organizations that Hannah and I work very closely with in Summit County, Colorado, and one of the organizations that we have donated to this year. So thank you all who rated and reviewed because we were able to send some money over to Building Hope. Kellyn, tell us a little bit about Building Hope, and then tell us a little bit about you and where you come from.
Yeah. Well, a little bit about Building Hope is we're a nonprofit in Summit County, and we are here to help improve access, reduce stigma, and build capacity for all things mental health. So those are sort of our big mission points. And we do that by working with wonderful providers in our community like you guys, offering scholarships for clients who have a financial barrier. We do lots of free events in the community for stigma reduction and just connection. And then do a lot of trainings for mental health awareness and kind of building that mental health literacy in the community.
I have to say, I feel like Building Hope's kind of a unique organization, right? Not every community is lucky enough to have a Building Hope that not only takes care of the community, but helps connect people and also takes care of their clinicians. I think it's a pretty special organization.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that we do a lot of conversations and calls with other communities who have heard about Building Hope or found out about us, in Colorado as well as outside of Colorado. And that's one of the coolest parts about the job is being able to share with other organizations and other communities what we do so that they can try to mirror that or take pieces of what we do and build it in their community. And I do think we're super unique for a provider. I remember being a provider here and having it be totally different than it is now. So it's really improved a lot.
Kellyn is also a licensed professional counselor and you've kind of done it all in mental health, it seems like. You've kind of been on lots of sides of that world.
Yeah, I started in Summit County in, I think it was 2013 that I moved to Summit County. I started as an independent private practice clinician, and there was just a handful of us here who were doing work and talking to each other and connecting on our own. But we were all sort of doing our own thing and working in our own worlds and our own private offices and, only connected if we reached out individually. So the amount that's changed about that small world is really exciting from a provider perspective, and like the therapist heart that I have. I'm like, oh, it'd be really cool to be in private practice again now. It'd probably be a totally different experience for me because it was quite lonely when I did it. And that's why I moved out of it actually and went into more of the community space.
Mm-hmm. It's a weird industry in that way. Because you're doing this work just one-on-one. It's very solo work. So it's nice to feel supported in community. Well, happy early Mother's Day. You've already celebrated one Mother's Day, and we just learned that Walter's already turned one, which is blowing my mind right now because I feel like he was born 3 days ago.
Great.
Yeah. So you've been a mom for a year and you've had your own journey with fertility and pregnancy loss and giving birth and all of those things. And it's been really inspiring to watch. And during this month, we really just want to honor all the different experiences that women and mothers especially can have, especially the ones that don't get talked about a lot. And we're so happy to have you on both to hear about your personal experience and also as a professional. I know you've seen what has been out there, what needs to be out there, what used to not be there, but is now. So we're excited to hear a little bit about that. Can we start with sort of from your professional lens in terms of moms, motherhood, new moms, pregnancy loss? That's a very broad category. What are you seeing? Yeah, it's a lot. What are you seeing in the mental health world around those things?
Yeah, I think in Summit County specifically, I think there is a lot more resources available, a lot more support available for moms and new parents, I would say, but moms in particular. I think, I tried individually to participate in as much as I could, given my history too. I was just like, really eager to soak in the support that was available. So there's new moms groups, there's parenting support classes and groups, there's stuff at the libraries, there's things at Youth and Family Services has a play group. There's Circle program within High Country Healthcare, and all of that sort of collectively, whether it's directly mental health support or not, I think it supports your mental health because you have resources and information. And then baby cafe too. I can't forget that. I went to that a lot, but all of those things kind of collectively have improved, I think, the awareness that just, motherhood comes with a lot of pressure, anxiety, stress. And it's not all just bliss and joy and like blessings for being a mom, which is all part of it, but it definitely, comes with a lot of weight in the mental health side of things. So there's lots of different resources that are out there that hadn't been in the past, I don't think, anyways. And we see that through Building Hope for sure. Some of the support groups are funded through our organization, and we have therapists like you guys that are helping to run those groups. And so it's just a huge collaborative process, which is awesome to see.
What are some of those stressors or nuances, things that you talked about that you see from a professional perspective? Because I know maybe in our realm of work, like we do get to see those a little bit more when women and new moms come to our office and share their struggles. But I think perhaps outside of the mental health space, new motherhood and pregnancy is supposed to be this joyous, beautiful, amazing, once in a lifetime experience. So from that professional side, what kind of stressors and struggles do you see uniquely to moms and pregnancy?
Yeah, I mean, from the professional standpoint, I think we see a lot of people who just feel really isolated, feel really alone. They think that, or moms feel like, even though people have been getting pregnant forever and having babies forever, there's so much more information and there's a bigger isolation too, because you're supposed to be able to do it all. You're supposed to be able to handle everything and work and do all the things. So I think from a professional standpoint, there's a lot of folks who reach out just looking for that group, that community, that like people who have been through it before and want to have the encouraging support kind of village mentality. And then I think like the hormonal information and awareness is a big piece too that sometimes doesn't get enough, I think, attention or bandwidth. People don't know about it as much. And so they oftentimes moms and new moms will reach out not knowing why they feel like this or what's going on, but they've changed or their feelings are different. And so they're trying to access care that way. I think there's also a really big guilt factor that happens too from a professional standpoint.
So, Kellyn, as a professional and also as a mom, where do you think new moms should start if they're not feeling well, if on any level, physical, emotional, mental health? Where do you think the best place is to start to get support?
I think moms should start. I think a really good place to start is your OB when you're pregnant and talking with them about like what are the expectations and what's going to come, sort of getting your head around, what is going to happen to me, and not just in my body, but in my mental space too. And I would say that I think a lot of our OBs here in Summit do a good job of talking about that up front, but maybe it's something that you gloss over or you don't think about when you're going through it because it kind of hits you like a ton of bricks and you don't really get it until it happens. But I would say starting with your OB, your health professional, if you have a therapist already, certainly reaching out to them and preemptively getting extra support and sessions on the calendar so that you don't have to think ahead of time to schedule things. There's going to be a lot of things, a lot of appointments to take part in. So just getting that on the calendar right away is important. And then trusting those professionals to lead you in the direction that you need to, and understanding that, they are there to support you. So you can move forward with their recommendations for sure.
So, Kellyn, can you talk a little bit about your personal journey to like making the decision to want to be a mom, to your pregnancy, and now Walter's a year old. So just walk us through what it was like for you.
Okay. How much time do we have again? No.
Well, I'm just curious about, we have a lot of women who are like, we don't know if I want to have a baby. Should I have a baby? Are you one of those people that always knew you wanted to be a mom? Was that a strong urge for you, or did you come to it later in life?
Yeah. So I definitely always thought that I would be a mom. Okay. I had the feeling and the notion that that was something that I wanted for my life and wanted for me as a person. And I also think that I never questioned that either. So I didn't spend a whole lot of time deliberating, what it means to be a mom and how that looks and the financial responsibilities and, what it does to your other life and persona and personality. So it was something that I knew I wanted, knew felt right, and I didn't ever debate it or question it for myself. I think I did go through a period of time where I was in a previous relationship that was maybe in a different space than I was about children. And so that made me think like, okay, maybe there would be an opportunity for me not to be, or what would that look like? But I always went back to like, no, that's something that I feel really strongly and passionately about and know that I need to do in my life, or at least need to pursue. I think I always caveated myself with like, there's lots of people who can't have kids, and I don't know if that's going to be me or not. And if I can't have kids, then I'll have to deal with that. But I want to be a mom in my heart, So
yeah.
That was always something for me.
Yeah, it's really fun and interesting to hear. You are like definitely one camp, right? Like there's just a camp of women who are like, I am going to do this. I've always wanted to do this. And I know like there's almost like somewhere deep in your being, you know that that's for you, or at least like you said, to give it a go. How did you decide the moment in your life when you went for it, when you started trying?
Also kind of complicated, right? Because I was ready. I was ready much before I had the right life circumstances in place. And when I say right, I mean like, again, the relationship that I was in when I was ready was not the right relationship for me. And so thankfully that ran its course. And I then met my now husband, and very early on we started talking, like before we were on date 2, I was like, do you want to have kids? Is that important to you? Like, this is a non-negotiable for me anymore. And I think that was part of my mental health journey too, was recognizing like I had set that aside as a huge piece of what I knew was what I needed in my life for a relationship that wasn't right. And so I was not going to do that again. That was something that I think helped my partner, my husband, and I get close quickly too, was setting those family goals. So we dated for a while, a year and a half, and then got married, and COVID happened. And so we were both kind of ready for kids very early in our relationship because we met when we were older. We were 34 when we met, 35 when we started dating, 36 when we got married, I think. Already my time was just like ticking in my head around like, I've got to do this, we've got to get pregnant. And so like the stress and pressure for pregnancy and babies was like 7 to 9 years already in the making, in my head anyways. So
And Kellyn, was that like based on a timeline or a goal you had for your own life, or just like generally, like we know as we get older, maybe fertility, like what was that pressure for you?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both, Hannah. It was like I was ready for kids. I knew I wanted to be a mom, and I probably would have had kids when I was in my late 20s. And so for me, it was like this, I think, stuffing of, okay, I can be okay with not having kids right now because eventually we will, but I'll just let the time happen as it will with that relationship. And then once that relationship did come to an end, and a lot of that was because it was like, okay, are we doing this or not kind of thing, among other things. But it was, that was part of the stress. So the pressure was my readiness, and also like just the stage of life and the biological clock ticking. And I think that's where that piece for me came about really significantly when we started to have struggles to get pregnant in that like I'm 36 range. That's where that like, holy shit, I am gonna lose it and the pressure is on sort of thing. So yeah, I think twofold. It was like readiness, age, relationships, all of it just kind of in my own head, thinking life was going to look a different way than it ended up having to go through that. Yeah.
And what was it like for you to start having struggles? Like okay, we made the decision. I'm ready. I'm finally here with the right person. I am working against this clock a little bit. What was that like for you for it to be a challenge?
Horrible, heartbreaking, like
Mm.
devastating across all realms. God, I'm gonna start crying already. It's still so like raw.
Yeah.
So I think it was super hard because, you know, like you just said, I had been waiting and pushing away this like desire. So there was so much weight and heaviness and like underlying stuff that was buried too. It was a lot of guilt on myself. It was like anger towards myself for not honoring who I was and what I wanted and waiting. And then, oh my God, I did this to myself because I did that, because I wasn't true to what I wanted. And so there was like, you know, you could unpack hours and hours worth of stuff just in that first bit of struggle. And for us, it was also like, there was nothing really wrong. There was no like, here's the thing that is causing this to happen. So I think a lot of people have like unexplained infertility, and really it's just you're getting older and your eggs are probably not as good as they were when you were in your early 20s or whatever.
16.
So, or 16. Yeah. So, damn biology. But yeah, so it was awful. And I think it was really hard to accept too, because at that time, I also, you know, had not had that much like heartache or like problems or like inability to achieve what I've wanted. So I think that was something, I mean, you know, I'll put it out there. Jane's been my therapist for a long time. And that is something that I worked through with her a lot in the early stages, was just like, I can do things. I can set goals. I can accomplish them. I can work hard. I can overcome. You know, I've been given a very satisfied and blessed and healthy life. So that to me was a huge struggle too. It was like, there's this thing that's like the most important thing in my entire life, and I can't do anything about it. So went through all of the stages of reeling through trying to control every little thing that I possibly could and making myself insane about it, and, you know, going back and forth with the pressure and guilt and like self anger towards yourself and all of that. So yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah, and I think you and I talked a lot about this, and I talked about this with a lot of high performing women from all cultural and racial backgrounds. But if you are used to setting goals and achieving them, and you're very good at that, and you're smart, and you're, you know, you've been able to say, I want to get this degree, or I want this career, I want some type of achievement in my life. The fertility journey and parenting from an outside perspective seems so different than that, you know, because we're just used to being able to say, I want to make a thing happen, and I have quite a bit of control depending on your situation, you know, to make that happen. So I think that this pregnancy journey, the IVF journey, pregnancy loss, trying to get pregnant, I'm watching, there are so many situations where you have so little control. And to me, that seems pretty painful for people.
And I would say it makes you it makes you quite like irrational about the things that you can control. So you like spin out, at least I did, from the perspective of like, what can I do? And if there's food, or if there's like a program or whatever it might be that I can latch on to, because you're just like spinning and reeling and grasping for straws, you do. I mean, you grasp and hold on to anything you can at a really unhealthy degree. So you probably like, because you have no control, you try and grab onto whatever control you just perceive that you might have, and it's all crazy making. I think you said that to me a million times, Jane, like, this is crazy making, and it is for sure.
My argument would be it's not even an unhealthy level of trying to control, you know, it's a pretty normal human response to feeling like I'm really trying to reach a goal and build a family and achieve a dream. And at every turn, people are telling me there's nothing I can do about it, essentially,
Yeah.
except try and have sex at the right time and keep going. So, I think like you're in such good company. I think that's human beings attempt to get a little bit of sense of control over the situation.
Yeah. And Kellyn, I'm wondering obviously you had a therapist, a great therapist, I would say, to help you through this. But one thing with a lot of my clients that struggle with infertility or pregnancy loss, part of the hardest part for them, and I'm curious what your experience is, the support or lack of support that they get, because it's something that is so out of your control and people have a ton of opinions about what to do and how to fix it. And this is what worked for me. And have you tried this? And that can be really, really hard. So will you just talk a little bit about what your support looked like during that time?
Yeah, I feel so incredibly lucky to have had the support that I did and still continue to have. So I would say, like, just exclamation point on everything you said around, like, people have so many opinions and people have so many ideas and suggestions and, thoughts around what you should and shouldn't try and all of those things. And that just like quadruples and piles on the pressure and the like perceived, this is me that's responsible for this and at fault, and like the perception that you have when you're going through it. So certainly 1,000,000,000 times like validate that point. I would say the support that I had was, my family was really awesome. And I am the type of person where I'm kind of like, I'm out there, I'm fully open. I don't have a ton of things in my life that I feel like are, private and super, super secure. So I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm an open deck, whatever, cliche metaphors or whatever you want to say. So I didn't have like, it wouldn't have been possible for me to hide this from people and from my circles. So just as a person, I think I put it out there to the people that felt closest to me, especially my friends and family. And I had several, let me go back for a second, because one of the benefits of having a later journey to motherhood was that I had so many friends who had been on this journey before and a surprising number who had also struggled. So thank God I had like people that I could just reach out to and that they were already, like almost like my infertility warriors who could mentor me through everything. And I had a close connection with two gals and then, a couple more that had those experiences as well. And so I leaned on them super heavily to just say, like, how did you do this? How did you get through this? This is what I'm feeling now. This is what the doctors are saying. And they're excellent friends with really good awareness too, as far as like not pushing their scenario or their advice, but just saying, I'm here for you and this sucks. And here's what I did if you want to hear that, or if you want to go into those things. So one of them's also in the mental health field, which works out because she knows kind of not to throw in too much advice like that. But anyhow, I had support through those friends. I had my Jane as the best therapist. And, I had my partner, my husband, who was really supportive as well.
Can you talk a little bit? You said something that stuck out to me. I've never tried to get pregnant before, so this could just be like a stupid thing I'm about to say. But you said, we don't know how hard it is, right? And to me, it's like, oh, we were taught like the minute you have sex, like you're going to get pregnant. So do you feel like that's still a normal perception, like that you're going to get pregnant easily? And it's hard for a lot of women, and most women that I've had experiences with in my personal and professional life have had a difficult time. And so what do you think of the narrative that it's like easy to get pregnant?
I mean, it's hard for me to say exactly like what the current narrative is still being spoken to, like what ages, because it probably should still be spoken to the younger crowd, because it probably is still easier. What I would say though is like, I think that one of the things that kind of occurred to me a number of times throughout my process was like, I learned more about my body and the ovulation process and the getting pregnant, like components, just wild amount of information that I had not known before. And I was 36 years old, right? Like I was learning about my body and my menstrual cycle at 36. And so that to me, I think was something that I was always like, why don't we talk about this realistically at a younger age? Because I do feel like there would be a lot of, maybe I'm also naive, but there would just be a lot of like awareness that you miss because I think when you are younger, and when I say younger, I even mean like in your college years, in your 20s, in your whatever, where like you literally think if you have sex, you're getting pregnant. And that's so not the case. There's like a literal 24 to 48 hour window, and more than that, like a 5-day window of your cycle every month. And if you avoid that time period, the likelihood of you getting pregnant is very, very, very minimal to like 0% because it can't logistically happen. I think if people, women and men, I'm all about educating the men too. If you can have some education on that, I feel like there would just be a, like, I don't know, a better outcome as far as like maybe avoiding unwanted pregnancies and birth control just as like the only thing that's there. You know, people can like measure their body and watch their body and their symptoms and know their cycle and know their body and their relationship with their body, all of those things. I don't know what the narrative is. I would say it's probably better than it was previously because in general, people are, you know, having kids later in life. I would say that seems to be a societal shift. So there are probably more conversations that are out now saying like, you know, it might take longer. The whole freeze your eggs. I mean, even when I went through this, that wasn't near as popular as it is today either. And this was just, you know, I guess I was 5 years ago when I started this whole process.
I think you spoke to it though, like how women are socialized out of our bodies and not taught anything about our bodies, right? Like the fact that we're not taught those things. I mean, it's wild, right?
And I mean, maybe we were, and I wasn't listening because I was
I don't think we
14
were.
years old.
At least in
like,
West Virginia, we were not taught that.
I don't think I was ever spoken to about like how your menstrual cycle really works with pregnancy. I knew about your menstrual cycle in terms of like bleeding and like use a tampon or pad or whatever, but there was not the like connection to pregnancy. Like that's the whole freaking point. You know?
Right.
Well, it's interesting to think about, especially in places where birth control is less available or becoming less available. That is an interesting and empowering piece of information for a teen or a woman or a young woman, right? To know more. I mean, and we've talked about this a lot on the podcast, the sort of socializing women out of a connection with their bodies. Like I'm 41 years old. I've had an IUD my whole adult life. Like I have no idea what's going on in there. Like I've never tried it. And every time I have these conversations, I get a little bit curious about that and what that is, what are the long lasting effects of that on my body, mood, psyche, spirit.
Like that was one of my biggest, I guess, like quote unquote regrets through this whole process. I was like, I've been on birth control since I was 18 years old and never thought twice about it. And I'm not saying like the research and the science and all of the people will tell you that birth control doesn't cause infertility, but I will stand on my box and say like emotionally I feel like it did, and it does. Something has to be happening with the birth control and like this stuff. Like there has to be something, but that's just, I don't know, I have no scientific data to prove that, but I feel like we should start doing it.
Yeah. I mean, you're speaking to something too in many pieces of this conversation, which is the blame, guilt, shame. I did something wrong. I screwed up. And we're all entitled to have those experiences. You know, if that's your relationship with birth control or the choices that you made, that's one piece. But I also think there's an additional socialization piece, especially now. And I'm curious how it's playing out now that Walter's here and you've been a mom for however long you consider yourself having been a mom, and just like all mom's bodies faults.
Yes.
A mom's choices is always her fault, right? About everything. And I think that starts like from the beginning. It starts from the choices we make about having unprotected sex, to the moments when we're trying to get pregnant, to the moments when there's pregnancy loss, to the moments when we're birthing, and then beyond. And a big like sweeping brush of accusation. But I'm curious what that's been like for you.
It feels like it's all on you as a woman, as a mom. So whether you're trying to get pregnant, it's looking at your body, looking at your tubes, your uterus. Like I had several surgeries to clean me out and lots of tests run and all of those things. And that's not to say that my husband didn't go through a lot of testing and things on his own too. But I would say that the heavy focus is on the woman. And I don't know that that's necessarily like, damn those men. Like that's not what I'm saying at all. It's more like just you're the one getting pregnant. You're the one carrying the baby. You're the one whose body has to be like right? So it is this, and Jane, I think we talked about this, there is like a perceived level of responsibility that maybe is undue and like too much and societal and all of the like just stuff that you put on yourself. And then there's this also like it's real too. Like there's a realistic element of like it is really on you. It is really your body that needs to carry the baby and your body that has to create the baby. So there's like this twofold of perceived guilt and pressure and questions. And it's also very realistic of like, okay, but it really is my body. So what is wrong with my body? Why isn't it happening? So I think that I had a hard time with that piece too, because I was like, what is realistic and like legitimate, and what's pressure that I'm putting on myself or that I can let go of. So I think that that was a lot to juggle, because there is a desire for people to say like, this isn't your fault. And like, it's not just you and it's okay. Like, you're putting too much stress on yourself. But then there's also like I said, yes, it is my body. Like it genuinely is me that needs to do it. So it is pressure. It is like realistic pressure too. So, and I think that that carries into motherhood as well. Like early on, I remember having so much hardship, and still now, but more so or very early on, where I was like, I am solely responsible for this baby in every physical way. Like legitimately, it is being entirely nourished off of me. And yes, everyone can be around and be supportive and be helpful or try to do things that they can do. But at the end of the day, if I am not feeding the baby, if I am not giving it nutrients. And that was for me for breastfeeding, because that's what I did. I know that's not always the same, but when you are in that position to be, fueling this baby and literally giving it life, it's a legitimate responsibility and pressure, and everything's on me. And it's also that on top of, then there's also the responsibilities that maybe you can't take on or can let go of that don't need to be yours anymore. So I think for me, it was always this wild relationship between the realistic stuff and what was coupled with all the other, maybe not awesome stuff that I could let go of, but couldn't let go of too.
What do you make of that? I mean, it sounds like to me like a trap, right? Like, okay, that is my responsibility. Like I am growing this baby in my womb. I have to make sure I'm healthy and the baby's healthy inside of me, and I'm giving birth and I'm breastfeeding if that's the choice. So I guess my question is, how can we culturally, individually, as therapists, as friends, as fellow women, as partners, support moms in that, right? Like, okay, holding the reality that it is your responsibility and also helping support you for the things that maybe feel like their responsibility but aren't. Does that question make sense?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that I don't know exactly what the right thing is. And I don't know if it is one answer for every person too, because everyone becomes a mother in their own like way, and how they decide to like be a mom is different for everybody too. So I think it's important that we don't put this is how it should look. But I think in my experience, it was okay for people, and it probably would have been even more validating for people to kind of say to me, yeah, you do have to be the one to do all of this stuff. That's your stuff now, and I'll take the rest, or we will take the rest. And I think that I would give myself or myself and my husband a lot of credit in that realm around like my husband took duties of house stuff and feeding me and feeding himself and shoveling the driveway and like those kinds of things that I mean, he typically did those anyways, but just it sort of amplified his role as support staff, I would say. And I think that that's like, gosh, I don't know. We could go into all this different stuff, but I feel like that's a piece that's also confusing about the model or the information or the suggestion that's happening today too, that I struggle with a lot, is because it's like dads should do everything that moms do, and there's this push to have dad super involved in all of the different aspects, which I'm supportive of, and to a certain degree that almost feels like added stress and pressure, because then it's like now you're not just mom in charge of this like support the baby and nurture, keep the baby alive. You're also having to deal with this like element of, okay, now I need to have a super involved dad from day one, and he needs to be able to feed and soothe and do all the things that I do, even though like physically, if you're breastfeeding, like you can't. So let him do the other stuff. I think that that's a weird narrative that I have never really gotten. It's never hit for me, is that, again, not that dads should just do I don't think they should go backwards in time and just do work and no parenting and all. Like, I don't think it should be total separation, but there's this super weird pressure around dads have to be so heavily active and involved in doing all of the things that mom does, and mom needs to be able to do all the things that dad does. Like there's this weird enmeshing of our roles, and sometimes I'm like, you guys, it's okay to have separate things. Moms can do certain things and dads can do certain things, and that is beneficial for your relationship. It's beneficial for, probably, in my opinion, us as a world. And it's okay to have differences between what men and women do and what husbands and wives or spouses, I should say, or partners. That's one of the things that was very pointed for me, was that all this pressure around what you're supposed to look like and what your family dynamic is supposed to look like and what your like relationship is supposed to look like and what you as a mom and you as a dad. And like, if it's not looking that way, that means dad's not a good dad or you're not a good mom and all those things. So,
well, I mean, I like what I heard you say and all that is like, it's important to sit down with your partner and your family and like even have a conversation with yourself around what feels good to me in this. What do we want our dynamic to look like, instead of following all these outside expectations of what motherhood and fatherhood and parenting is, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it, Hannah, in a much conciser way of saying it. Like but that's what it feels like. There's just so much. Like I'm talking fast and long-winded because it's like God, every direction you turn, there's another opinion or there's another like expectation that's being given to you or being like put in front of your face, whether it's social media or media in general or friends or family or whatever. And yeah, Hannah, you're right. Just sitting down and saying what works for us. And if it doesn't look like this, model that we've been given or pushed towards, that's okay. 'Cause it's for us, it works.
Totally.
I mean, for all types of people, moms without a partner, families who have, queer partners, queer parents, all of those things, there's so many ways that it can look. And the nuance for me is that there's this pressure around it looking a certain way, and that I often see moms taking that on, right? So like, oh, now I not only have to raise a baby and have this massive responsibility, as you're saying, but I also have to train my husband or my partner or my spouse to be in some sort of equitable relationship with me. And sometimes it's great when your partner takes that on themselves and really steps forward and you don't have to do that emotional labor. But I think that some of that nuance is that then again, because in heteronormative relationships, the woman tends to do most of the emotional labor. Creating equity is emotional labor.
Yeah.
So I think that there's this pressure again around like, okay, so be the perfect mom and do it all, but then make sure everybody's helping you. Right. But then make sure you don't make the kid just dependent on you. Like make sure dad's coming and helping, but then make sure, like all those pieces that sound very overwhelming. And I love the idea that people just step back and say like, now you're doing this massive thing. And so many of the tasks that are required, only you can do. Right. Instead of saying like, we can all help. Let us all help. It feels like there might be a nice honoring in looking at a mom and saying, there's a bunch of shit now that only you can do.
Yeah.
I like that.
And if that is what the mom wants to do, right? Like, but I think it's also, even like you're saying, even asking that question of like, how do you want this to look, mom? And everyone just waiting for you to respond feels that's like a task within itself, right? But I think, one thing that I think I try to do, and Jane, through our work together, I've backed off of stuff that's not my responsibility. So like when it comes to, the relationship that Rob has with Walter, I'm like, that is in his wheelhouse, right? And that is within his decision-making process and within his responsibilities. I'm here to support. That's where I'll play support staff, and I'll be really like encouraging and, whatever, to supporting obviously a really great relationship. But I find that sometimes when I do take that step back, or when I back off of being in charge of the micromanaging everyone's responsibilities, everyone actually does a lot better than when I'm in charge of it. So I think that's like kind of it's a pressure that has been put on women or moms or whatever to like take on, but we are actually doing a disservice to ourselves and the external relationships, because I've noticed, and this is not even just with Walter, it's like relationships that my husband has with his friends or my family or anyone else, when I'm not trying to manage it or trying to like involve it or decide how it should look, it goes a lot better. So that's what I would say, is just like those things will flush out too. I think there's also this super big pressure to like the day you have your baby to have everything totally worked out. And you're supposed to be able to answer the question of how's he sleeping and what's he eating and where, how's it going? It's like, I don't have a fucking clue. I am just managing. We have survived the last hour and a half, and that's as far as I've gotten. So I don't know. I think that that's a piece of it too. It will work out. Like it will smooth out. It will go as it will. And trying to have the expectations or the plan of what it's going to look like is just extra unneeded, undue pressure that doesn't usually look like that anyways.
Well, it sounds like it's another area where women have to challenge the perfectionism expectation, right? Of like, okay, what does it mean to be a great mom, a perfect mom, a great wife, right? Have the ideal pregnancy. It sounds like part of the healing for you would is to strip that away and just like do it hour by hour, like survive, right?
And I feel like that's something that sort of it almost comes because you like don't have any, like you're so exhausted and also kind of like, I can't do all of this stuff. So it almost comes because you're like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how this is all happening. And you just kind of come to that conclusion, or at least that's how it worked for me. It was just like, I just let it happen because that's how it unfolded. That's not necessarily how I envisioned it happening, but it just came that way. And then I was like, okay, this is actually better.
All right. So you had this period of time where you're going through it with the struggling part. You get pregnant with Walter. Like, walk us through how it felt after you'd been through, some years of difficulty. Like, walk us through how it's been, what that process was like.
I think, when I got pregnant with Walter, it was a whirlwind. I was obviously elated and through the moon with excitement and joy, and like, I can't believe this is actually real. I actually didn't believe it so I went through IVF. So the process, we did the transfer, and then you do a midway lab test, and that kind of doesn't really do anything besides just tell you if you need more progesterone or not. And then we did the first initial pregnancy test. And also within the IVF world, and in my scenario, I was on what are called HCG booster shots. So they were putting the pregnancy hormone into my body. So when I first did the first pregnancy test with the clinic, I knew it was going to come back positive. So getting the positive result in my head, I also was like, okay, it's positive, but that doesn't mean anything. Like, I'm not pregnant. I had been through so many no or maybe no, and yes, you are pregnant, and then miscarrying. And then, so I had been through so many whiplashes with pregnancy tests, and actually came to like fear and hate pregnancy tests and just have a really negative association with them in general. So that when I took that pregnancy test, my like coping mechanism was just to tell myself I wasn't pregnant, because then I wouldn't be disappointed when the clinic called or whatever. So anyways, I got that first test, and they called and they said, oh, your boosters are showing positive, or your test is showing positive. Congratulations. And I went through that whole call just being like, okay, great. So like, what's next? Because I know we have to test again, because it's just like the pregnancy, like the pregnancy hormone. And the nurse had to say to me like multiple times, no, you're actually pregnant. Like, this is more than the boosters, and we know that. And I was driving, and I was beside myself, and then also like totally terrified, right? Yeah. Like, so it was really complicated, I would say. And then when we went back for the second one, and it kept getting higher and higher, and it just started to like really be something that I could be happy about. There was always this looming, like, don't be too happy though. Like, don't be too there. So I would say that my personal, like, emotional journey with getting the positive test finally and having it be real was still very, very challenged and super intense. So it took me a while to really settle in and believe it, and just allow myself to actually be happy and be excited, because that was always in my head, had become that triggering response of like, once you're super happy and once you feel secure, like that's we're all gone, goodbye, how dare you, sort of thing. So put that back into like the guilt and the like hardship around, your fault, you got too excited, your fault, you were greedy, whatever. So I would say it was a ride, like getting pregnant and being pregnant, and, then struggling because, again, like the outside voices are all like, don't, no, just enjoy this time. Be happy. It's real. And one thing that I'll say is everything and anything that people are telling you or told me, even all of the opinions, are like, stand on your head after you have sex for 10 minutes. All of the things all come from the most loving, supportive, just wanting it for you too. Sorry, it just is really sucks, because people also don't know how that lands. Yeah. But they're also trying so hard to just love you. So it's really just hard. But
I see that so much, where there can be this intellectual understanding that people are just trying to like, really, they truly just want you to have, to be a mom. They know you're going to be a great mom. They want you to be happy and well. And they're the misguided things that we say, in all sorts of situations, when you lose a loved one or when you are going through something like this. It's hard. It's hard on both sides, right?
Yeah. And you want so bad to accept exactly what they're saying and to have that be like truth and to feel really good. And you want to like latch onto it, right? But there's this huge fear to that piece of believing what they're saying, you know? And so I would say I struggled with that probably the entire first trimester for sure, up until probably after the like 20-week scan and into like well into the pregnancy, you know, and having Walter wasn't the most beautiful, amazing process either. It was like kind of really crazy and ended up being, you know, also again, not the birthing process that I had dreamed of or thought about or expected for myself. And that's something that also took a little bit of time to just sit with too. And, you know, and then there's this whole, like I had a C-section and it was after a lot of the like going to and fro. So it was also this like, I for moments had the feeling I'm not actually giving birth, you know, like after all of it, I'm not even giving birth to him. Can I even say that I gave birth to my baby? And I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing to myself? Like, of course your birth, you know, like, of course, Kellyn, you're giving birth to Walter. Like, this is perfect. It's okay. But like, you know, there is just every step along the way a mind fuck of stuff that can happen. And that hasn't stopped now still, like of, you know, is he meeting these milestones? Is he doing these things? You know, am I doing everything that I possibly can to make him the most well-rounded, wonderful human that's ever walked the earth, right?
Am I doing it perfectly? Right.
Yeah, am I doing it perfectly? And like am I the best mom for him that like he could have? And of course, like every single moment of every single day, absolutely not. But collectively, again, Jane, I feel like you said this or somebody, you quoted a book, but it's like, you're the perfect mom for your baby. You know, there's nobody more perfect than you. That's where I've been like, okay, yeah, that's because he's mine. And that's been the most amazing part of it. It's like, he is mine forever. Nobody can change that. Nobody can take that away. Like, that is true. Like, he's my baby. I'm his person. I'm his mom. And that's all that matters at the end of the day.
That was so beautiful. Thank you, Kellyn.
It was so beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm assuming, and maybe this is like a whole nother, since we're so far into the interview, but I'm assuming Walter comes, and then of course it's not all this like perfect, yay, it's here now, and I struggled so much, and so everything's easy, and I'm having a great time, and there's no struggle. So just affirming that for you, for everybody out there, because I think there might be a little bit of like, oh, you waited so long to get here, or it's was such a journey. So now it must be so great and so fun, but it's the same for you as it is for every other mom who is not the same. If you face the same types of challenges that every other mom is, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And I think that that's something that having the support system around me was super helpful too, because I had maybe a notion in my head, like I'm going to just relish in this more than anyone else could because of what I've been through. And I do think there's a certain gratitude that did finally come for that, like around, you know, I am thankful for the way that everything has panned out, and whether that was, you know, my journey to motherhood and all of the things that we went through, because I do think it, you know, as we didn't get into it as much as we could have, Hannah, but like the relationship struggles that happened during the infertility time, during the pregnancy time, there is so much stress on the relationship when it comes with infertility. And like, holy shit, the amount of stuff you go through together and separately and how you manage it differently, and all of it is so weighted. And so there's a piece of me that's grateful for that process, because it really did help Rob and I like be really, really, really sure that we wanted to have kids and wanted to have them together and like move forward. So I don't know, there's gratitude for it all. And absolutely, Jane, there's no doubt that it's still super hard. And there's still moments where I'm like, I would die to just give myself some space right now. And then flipping over to like, how can I say that I wanted it for so long? And, you know, so just kind of, I think being easy with myself to use that as like good reminders. Yes, you're stressed. Yes, you're having a hard time. You're dealing with a lot and you did work really hard to get here. And so just take a deep breath, enjoy it, take a minute and just look at this beautiful baby and sit down and leave the cleaning or whatever. And stuff will just, your house is going to be dirty for a while. That's what I keep saying. I'm like, I don't know. It's kind of, that's what it is right now. So,
well, and Kellyn, I think it like beautifully, I mean, you sharing this, I mean, I appreciate you. We appreciate you so much. And I know it's going to like resonate so much. And I think what you just landed on illuminates why it's so important to have support, right? Yeah. Like you going through this experience of never feeling like fully like resolved and it being so complex and pressure. That's why it's so important to have support with your partner, fellow moms, women going through this, because I mean, it's a lot on you. It's very clear, right? And it's a lot on every new mom. And so the support piece is huge.
Yeah. So huge. And I would say huge for dads too. And I think probably even part of them like doesn't have the same support that moms are given too, which is, I think it's great that moms do have that support. So like it's dire, it's necessary. It's not like, oh, it's great. It's like, no, this is survival. This is like how you actually need to have motherhood work. Like it's imperative. And I would say it probably needs to be seen in that same light for men and for partners, not just men, but partners going through it too, because that feels super necessary too. And it can look in all different forms, right? It doesn't have to be like the mom circle and whatever, but just some sort of support for them too, because it's so hard. Like it's just so much to take on. And yeah, I always said to my girlfriends who had kids before me, like I had no idea what it was like, and I felt pretty naively, like I felt pretty prepared. I felt pretty like aware of what being able to take care of a kid looks like, but it's like not the changing diapers and having a bottle and stuff. It's all the in between that is so stressful and hard and just full on 24/7 without a doubt. But also amazing.
Kellyn, we are going to let you go because I know you have to go pick up your sweet Walter that we're talking about. Thank you.
His ears must be burning.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for, as Hannah said, coming on and sharing your journey with us. It's so important for other moms, other women, everyone in the world to hear what it's like. And so we really appreciate your vulnerability and honesty and taking the time out of your busy schedule to share with us. We will link all of the information about Building Hope in our show notes. And I know you're there on the website. If you want to get in touch with Kellyn, we will make sure that we have her email in the show notes. And again, you can find her on the Building Hope website. Kellyn, Walter's so lucky. We're so lucky we get to have you today. Thanks for joining us.
Give Walter a big hug for us.
Well, I will. I absolutely will. Extra hugs are my favorite.
You've been listening to Are We Happy Yet? A Green Roof Studios production.
This episode was recorded and produced by Hannah Buzzo and Jane Thatcher Hahn.
If you liked what you heard, rate, review, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Every review on Apple or Spotify helps us grow and redefine what it means to be well in an unwell world.
Thanks for listening. Try to stay happy out there.